How do people make judgments about uncertain events? Consider a few everyday questions. Will you catch the flu this year? Will a new business succeed? Is a particular medical symptom something serious? Will housing prices rise or fall over the next few years? Questions like these require us to make judgments about the future. Yet the future is inherently uncertain. We rarely know exactly what will happen, and we often must make decisions before all of the relevant information is available. This challenge is not unique to modern life. Throughout human history, people have had to assess risks, anticipate outcomes, and make choices under conditions of uncertainty. Long before the development of probability theory or statistical analysis, people relied on experience to guide these judgments. How do people accomplish that? This question became a major focus of research in judgment and decision making during the 1970s. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman were particularly interested in understanding how people make judgments under conditions of uncertainty. Many traditional models of judgment emphasized normative models, models that describe how people should reason if they follow the principles of probability and logic. Tversky and Kahneman were interested in a different question. How do people actually make judgments when the future is uncertain and information is incomplete? Their descriptive approach focused on the intuitive strategies that people use when evaluating uncertain events, rather than assuming that people routinely apply formal rules of probability. One of the most influential answers to their question was the availability heuristic. The basic idea is straightforward. When people are asked to judge the probability of a frequency of an event, they rarely calculate those quantities directly. Instead, they often rely on information that is easier to access. Rather than answering a difficult question such as, how probable is this event? People may implicitly answer a simpler question. How easily can I think of examples? Tversky and Kahneman proposed that the ease with which examples come to mind often serves as a cue for judging frequency, probability, and likelihood. Why did they find this idea so important? The answer lies in the relationship between memory and reality. Some events are easy to remember because they're emotionally powerful. Others are memorable because they're recent, surprising, vivid, or heavily discussed. Personal experiences may stand out in memory even when they're statistically uncommon. In our modern world, media coverage can make events highly accessible even when they occur relatively infrequently. As a result, what comes to mind is not always the same thing as what is most probable. This observation became a central theme within the Heuristics and Biases research program. Tversky and Kahneman argued that mental shortcuts can sometimes produce systematic departures from formal standards of probability and logic. These departures are often described as cognitive illusions because they reveal predictable patterns in the way people judge uncertainty. The availability heuristic became one of the most influential examples of this broader idea. If people rely on ease of recall rather than objective frequencies, their judgments may sometimes be systematically distorted by the contents of memory. Not all researchers viewed this as the most important lesson of the availability heuristic, however. Gerd Gigerenzer and other proponents of the fast-and-frugal perspective argued that focusing primarily on errors provides an incomplete picture of human judgment. In many real-world environments, people must make decisions quickly with limited information and without the opportunity to compute precise probabilities. From this perspective, the more interesting question is not whether people use availability, but why should such a strategy often work? Events that occur frequently generally leave more traces in memory than events that occur rarely. Experiences encountered repeatedly tend to become more accessible over time. Information that has proven useful in the past is often easier to retrieve than information that's rarely been needed. Under many conditions, the accessibility of information may therefore provide a useful cue about what is common, important, or likely. Long before formal probability theory existed, humans relied on experience to make judgments about uncertain events. From this perspective, memory is not merely a substitute for statistical analysis, it's one of the primary tools people use to navigate uncertainty. This difference in emphasis reflects a broader question that continues to shape research on judgment decision making. Should heuristics be understood primarily as sources of systematic error, or should they be understood as adaptive tools that help people make effective judgments with limited information and limited time? The availability heuristic remains one of the most influential ideas in judgment and decision making because it sits at the center of this question. It highlights both the power and the limitations of human cognition. We're often required to make judgments before we have complete information, and we rarely have the time or resources to estimate probabilities precisely. Under these conditions, memory becomes more than just a record of past experience. It becomes a tool for reasoning about the future. Whether that tool leads to accurate judgments depends, in part, on the relationship between what is most accessible in memory and what is actually happening in the world. Understanding that relationship has been a central goal of research on judgment and decision making for more than half a century.